Now, who are consultants? Consultants are external experts who are very generalist in nature, hired by some of the top companies in the world to solve some of their key managerial problems. Now, what do I mean by these key managerial problems? The problems can range on a plethora of industries, like you can serve pharma clients, you can serve telecom clients, your next client might just be Reliance. You can serve, an electrical engineering company that you have no clue about. The projects range from operations where you probably be working in the mine somewhere, optimizing their operations, to strategy, working in the headquarters of a top global PE client, helping them acquire their next investment. Their next investment might just be a 5,000 crore market cap large company. It can be anything. Now, you as a consultant don't need to have that industry expertise. You don't need to do chemical engineering to solve a mine problem. What you're hired to do is utilize your global expertise, utilize partners from all over the world. In the case of McKinsey, that I could call anyone and I would have an answer to my problem. Utilize the skills that you have, utilize the logical reasoning and first principle problem solving abilities that you have to solve some questions. And every question can be broken down into the nth detail that you as a consultant will be expected to solve. Now, it sounds glamorous. We'll be visiting countries that no one can think of. I remember I did 3 Indian cities within a week, and I was on a flight every morning, returning home every night, going back to the flight the very next morning to travel to a different city. So yes, life is hectic. Some people might just say in some consulting companies there's no work-life balance. So if you want to pursue your hobby, and one of my friends wanted to play tabla for 4 hours a day. He was a great tabla player, but we realized that consulting wasn't for him because it might not just give you the time. So that's one aspect of your life that you as an individual need to figure out. What are your priorities? Work is great, exposure is great. The kind of people that you'll be exposed to will be CXOs of top companies. Something that most people our age can't even think of having the exposure of. The money, yes, some might say that's also great. International travel, yes. But is that for you? You'll have to figure out yourself. Now, what are the skills that are expected out of a good management consultant? Number 1, I feel, is problem-solving abilities. If you can't help the client solve the basic problems, you're not going to cut it. If you can't divide any question into subcomponents, you're not going to get it. You need to be very logical, use first principle, and solve those very basic problems that the client has hired you for. Second, communication. I don't know how many of you have had the luxury of meeting a management consultant face-to-face, but I can tell you one thing. They have an aura. When a McKinsey consultant walks in the room, you know a McKinsey consultant is walking in the room. That's a sort of communication skills, aura, persona, confidence you need to personify. Your written communication has to be A1. You can't be sending a mail to the CXO of the number 1 company of India having grammatical errors. That's a big no-no. Presentation skills. My life in McKinsey was 80% making a presentation and probably 20, maybe 30% Excel number crunching. So you need to be very comfortable with Excel. Now, I don't mean to scare you. We'll have like N number of trainings where they'll grill us and they'll make sure we know all of these skills. So even if you don't know these skills right now, it's okay. You're going to have N number of trainings where they're going to grill you to it. But if you do already know this, it puts you over an edge above your competitors. So it's definitely good to know basic skills. You don't need to be able to do a financial modeling. I think even I'm not comfortable with it. It's been so long, I say even I don't know, so it's okay. But basic presentation skills, Excel skills, writing an email properly, it's basic that's expected out of you. Leadership. Now, the thing about management consulting at McKinsey was we were divided into teams. Now, the teams could be 1 person handling 1 client all on its own, or 5 people working together serving 1 client with your partner, your engagement manager, so on and so forth. But all of you are expected to show an iota of ownership, and that will only come if you have leadership traits. So if in your story, if in your resume, if in your life you've shown leadership, please go ahead and display that because that's extremely valued. Quantitative skills. Having the ability to crunch numbers off the top of your head is extremely important. We don't expect you to tell us 5980.523 into God knows what. but basic things you should be able to do off the top of your head. Intelligence, of course, and I don't need to explain it further, but flexibility, very important. Like I told you earlier, there's very little work-life balance, and you might just get a call. Like I've gotten a call at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night with huge chunks of work expected me to deliver it the next day. I've worked weekends, I've worked Diwali, so you need to be extremely flexible. And if you're going to be rigid, life is going to be a little tough for you. So you need to also be a people's person. Sometimes you just put in a remote location with nobody but the client to see, sometimes not even that, and 2-3 people in your team. And now if you don't get along with that, on a study which spans months, life is going to be a little tough. So having a basic sense of humor, a likable personality definitely goes a long way. Now, growth is one thing that's personally very important to me. I might join the best company at the best role, but if I'm going to do that for the next 5 years, no. So you guys need to really think about what the growth trajectory of the company is where you're planning to apply. I can tell you at McKinsey or any typical management consulting firm, it goes as follows. At an undergrad level, they usually hire as something called a business analyst or BAs. In McKinsey, the tenure is 2 to 3 years typically, and BAs are in fact encouraged to look for other opportunities at the end of those 2 or 3 years, or go for an MBA. And most people that I know ended up going for their MBA or any other specialization that they developed an interest in their 2 years they served as a BA. After an MBA college, McKinsey hires at someone called a junior associate or a JA tenure. You serve there for about 2 years, get designated to an associate, serve there for about 2 years, then you get designated to an engagement manager. Engagement manager, again, tenure is slightly flexible, but 2 to 3 years is the average. After that, you become the associate partner, then the senior partner. I'm not going to talk about their tenure because there it gets a little varied, but this is what you need to know about right now. In other consulting firms, the trajectory is very similar. The role they'll hire you on, the term would be different, but the trajectory is pretty much similar. After an undergrad level at McKinsey, these days they've started doing something like called a direct to associate, wherein they promote a business analyst who's done extremely well directly to an associate, surpassing the JA level. So that's something they've started recently, and I think for people who are applying, it would be good to know. Think of whether these options or these exit opportunities or path to partner, as we call it, are available in other consulting firms that you're planning to apply to. And if it's there, then I would give it a +1 for me trying to apply to that consulting firm. This brings us to the end of this section.